Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the G.I.JOE 3D printing podcast. We've got one viewer already. It's going fast. It's probably it's Mike or it's my mom. Our special guest today, he stepped away for a second, so I didn't bring him up, and he's back already. But James Carter the Conqueror, former Hasbro sculptor, sculpt manager. He's here to talk ZBrush with us. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So since I've been, it's weird even still to say it, but since I've been sculpting professionally, there's certain names that I hear a lot, and yours is one of them. And we spoke, last week, I think, for the first time. And what a pleasure. That was 2 hours well spent. So, here we are. I'm really excited that you're here today. So thank you for joining us.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. I love talking toys. So I don't know how much time everybody has, but I'll be here for like all day talking toys if people want to listen. So
okay, we'll see. At some point, I'm sure someone's going to want me to do something for them. So we'll see. How it goes. Yeah. So a big part of what we want to talk about today is ZBrush. We've done demos of Tinkercad. We've done demos of, I think we've had some people show like early on, we've had some Maya. We had a little bit of Blender. We've talked about some specific programs. But we really haven't gotten into ZBrush, and the reason being is it's a beast. It's a beast of a thing to learn. I'm still not comfortable trying to explain anything about it to anyone. Mike, you haven't touched it. Artwann, I don't think you've touched it. We just haven't had a good ZBrush guy. And I firmly believe like ZBrush is the right tool for a lot of what we do here, and certainly I think it's the right tool in the toy industry. So yeah, we're pretty excited to have you here to talk about it.
Yes, sir.
It's ZBrush is one of those things. When I very first started like learning it, I honestly got frustrated with it. I hated it. I thought, oh God, I don't know how to sculpt anymore because of this thing. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I love it, it's not user friendly. It's calling it a beast is being kind. So I'm still learning stuff on it. I'm still just using the exact same tools and same methods from like one of the early versions of ZBrush, and sometimes my sculpting brethren make fun of me for that, but my thing is it works, and so far I've fooled everybody with it. So if it works for you, then it works.
Right.
So I do kind of want to start at the beginning. Like, how'd you get into it? Where have you worked? Like, what experience do you have?
Oh, sure, yeah.
When I front and center yourself.
Oh yeah.
Not me.
When I very first started, it was I wanted to do movie effects for like essentially Star Wars when it was still cool, but I wanted to do like the miniature models and everything for like the movies. So I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh and got into the program there as far as doing industrial design. So I learned mold making and
I went to the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale.
No way.
Yeah. But I did, I went for, this was 93, 94, 95. I did advertising design.
Okay.
And I would see the industrial design guys, because, they'll put stuff on display in the halls. And I was like, God damn, I took the wrong course.
Yeah, you did.
So please continue.
But friends of mine, again, it's not what you know, it's kind of who you know. So a friend of mine that graduated with me, she ended up getting a job at Kenner Toys in Cincinnati. And she told me there was a spot open there, and I applied there to the model shop. But on my lunch breaks, I would sneak up to the sculpting department, and I would borrow some wax, ask them, made friends with them, and they gave me some wax, and I took it home, and I would actually teach myself how to sculpt in wax that they used for toy making at the time. And then fast forward to where Cincinnati got shut down because they consolidated everything to Rhode Island. I was without work for a little bit. So I became a miniature sculptor for like tabletop miniature games. There was a company in Ohio that did that as well in Cincinnati.
Okay, not Iron Winds, somebody else.
Yes, Artwann. Yeah,
I was part of that. Kidding me?
Yeah, it's
a very
stuff? Yeah, it's a very
no shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, great, Mark.
Oh
just
my
got us
God.
monetized.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, this is gonna be a long episode, man.
Well, there's more. Yeah, it's funny because like there are a lot of toy sculptors and miniature sculptors, and everybody knows everybody. So it's funny when people tell me, oh, if they happen to have met a toy sculptor, I ask them, well, what's their name? Because I probably know them. So
yeah,
there's not a whole lot of us, but there are a lot of us, but not in the grand scheme of things, there's not. So we all kind of know each other. But and so that place ended up becoming WizKids games, because they're still Artwann, there's WizKids, so they were working together, and then WizKids decided, okay, well, we're going to branch off and do our own thing. So they got into more plastic miniatures, where Artwann did metal miniatures. So they opened...
real quick, everybody. Yeah. Like one of the highlights of I'm not going to get that, but so I did a tour. You can at least pre-COVID. Okay. I don't know if they still do this, but you could go do a tour of Artwann metals if you were into that kind of stuff. And normally, like if you want to buy, and I went because I'm a BattleTech guy.
Oh yeah.
You can buy. There's a couple different websites where you can buy this stuff, and it's pewter, like so it's heavy, it's shipping's expensive. But if you go to Artwann's, you can buy as much shit as you want, and you don't pay per item. You pay for weight.
Yeah.
They will take. They're unpacked. It's the warehouse, and you can go through and just pick what you want, and you weigh it, and you pay for the weight of the metal.
Yeah,
and it's crazy. Like it's real cheap. So like, you go there knowing I'm going to spend like $200, and you walk out like with more than you can literally carry because it's so heavy.
It's really heavy.
Yeah. Sorry, I sorry for the tangent. Please continue.
Oh no, I'm glad. I love talking about this stuff with people who geek out about it too.
Artwann's, man, that blows my fucking mind.
Yeah, and I'm cool. I'm pretty sure those guys still do that. I mean, that was like their bread and butter. Just, I mean, not only do you get to, it's like a store, but it's also, you get to geek out, and you get to actually just pick whatever you want, and you just fill your bag or fill your box or whatever. And like,
it's so cool. And you can walk through and see the people actually doing the casting. And it's roto casting with metal. Yeah. So they've got these rubber molds that I assume you probably ended up making some of those, right?
Oh yeah. That was fun. So
they put the two halves of the molds together, and it's heated, and they put it on the thing, and it spins, and they pour the metal in, and metal is heavy, and it's like you got to get all that air out of there. So they use centrifugal force to force the metal in. Okay. And so it was just like so cool to go see that. Yeah.
In my mind, I always thought when I was pouring it, like I was actually pouring little Terminators. And so they were all sorry, tangent. But so then they became WizKids, so WizKids split off from them, and they were doing plastic miniatures, where Artwann was still doing metal miniatures. So their main office was out in, it's not there anymore, but out in Bellevue, Washington, out in Seattle. So I moved out. Moved out there, became the sculpting manager there, and then left that place because different people were coming in and different management, and I'd been there long enough, so it was time to move on. And then I moved down to San Diego because Upper Deck, that does the trading cards and everything and sports cards and all that kind of stuff, they were trying to get into miniatures as well. So I worked with them doing Blizzard stuff, and because they were trying to do the World of Warcraft miniatures. And then Blizzard hired me from Upper Deck to come and work directly at Blizzard. So I was working on toys with them for a good while, and miniatures and stuff. And then when I left there, then Hasbro reached out to me and said, hey, we're now digital. You want to come out and be a sculpting manager for us out on the East Coast in Rhode Island?
Wow.
I didn't want to do that because I'm a West Coast guy at heart, and I couldn't go to Rhode Island and leave San Diego. So I told them, okay, I'll go out. But I kept a little secret, not letting them know that I was going to leave after a year and come back to San Diego. So I did that, but they asked me, hey, we have an LA office. Would you want to stay with us and work out of the LA office up there? And I said, no, I don't want to do that. But so then they said, it's too long a drive from San Diego. It's just a horrible drive. So I told them, hey, what if I just worked out of the office for a couple of days out of the week, and then I could work from home in San Diego for a couple of days? And they said, sure, no problem, we can do that. So like, sweet. So I did that for I don't know how many years, and then I ended up leaving Hasbro at the end of 2023. I was a big part of the massive layoff that they had because all of their restructuring and everything that's going on. And now it was kind of a blessing in disguise because it gave me a chance to do stuff other than I was on Star Wars at the time at the end, and it was just time to kind of move on and do something different anyway and do some more of my ideas and help some creative folks get their ideas off the ground. So here we are, and now I get to do podcasts, and I don't have to go through a legal department to see what I can and can't talk about, and what I can mention, what I can't. Now it's just me.
And so, so this is the first time you've done a podcast ever.
Yes. Right? So thank you.
Excellent. Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
So cool. So, and so you and I have worked on, I think, at least two of the same lines. So we both contributed a little to Operation Recall and Action Force.
Yes.
So it's cool. It's cool. So I met Arlen Peltier, who's another sculptor. I met him this summer at Joe Fest. And like I am a fan of his work, and like
me too.
You know, I look at what he does, and it's like that's where I want to be eventually. And it turned out like we had worked on the same figure at one point.
Oh yeah.
And like inside I'm just like but yeah, I try to play it cool.
Yeah.
In person.
No, Arlen is one of those people, like, I'm in awe of his work, and just, he's one of those people too, you know, when you meet somebody and you think, hey, this person's like super cool and everything, and then you meet them and then you're like, oh, that person's not that cool because now they kind of have a big head. Arlen's completely the opposite of that, and I'm always amazed at how humble he is and everything with just the amazing work that he puts out, and he taught himself all that. He taught himself ZBrush. So, oh wow. Like, I'll ask him stuff like,
I mean, I yet to meet anyone who was taught ZBrush from somebody else.
Formally.
You know, I'm sure it exists. I'm sure there's a school somewhere where they're teaching that now, but I haven't met anyone yet.
Not really. And it was crazy because most of the art institutes, I don't think they're around anymore, but I actually always wanted to, like, once I graduated and made it big in the toy game, I wanted to be able to go back and like recruit people and train them and everything, because honestly, I don't think there's a couple of schools that Hasbro works with and everything that they'll teach a course in ZBrush and everything, but there's nothing to where there's a lot of folks that really gear learning ZBrush towards toy making. It's more so they'll teach people for like video game industry or for the movie industry or something. But
and they do a lot of statues.
Yeah,
right. And which is great, which is fine. But if you can't build an articulated figure, it's worthless. Yeah.
And I've run into folks, and I don't want to cross people or make them feel like it's weird, because sometimes like I'll say something and it doesn't go through the filter in my head, because sometimes I'll say, oh, well, you know, anybody can do like a statue. I expect you, if you're sculpting, I expect you to be able to do a statue. But to me, from my toy background, like the real love and the real joy, the real gift is actually, can you make that statue move? And can you make it still look good while it's moving? So, and I know there's people that, and I get hate for that, and then I'll back up and think, no, I ain't mean like that. Okay, maybe I kind of did, but not really.
But it's true. It's 100% true. Like it's a it's a worthless skill in the toy industry if you can't articulate.
Yeah. And that's the real thing, because no one, like, even when we would have people come in at Hasbro and everything, there's no one that really teaches you that. And it's the articulation and the way I thought we could even possibly do a better job of it, to where we would just kind of tell folks, well, go and get a figure and take it apart and just see how it works. Well, that's one aspect of it. But again, there's still people that are still learning ZBrush. I still feel like I'm learning it all the time. So there's not really that technique of, well, how do I put that ball joint in there? How do I get that double knee joint, or the ankle rocker, or the butterfly joints for the shoulders, that's still something I have to go sit down, go back, look at my notes, like, all right, how do I do this again? Because not every figure uses those, but it's becoming more and more prominent with them. So like, all right, I got to get this down to a science now, so I know how to do this. So
if I were to describe it, I would say that sculpting a statue is an art, whereas the articulation is engineering.
Absolutely, yes.
You have to account for the range of motion and the tolerances of the plastic and what your grow on the plastic is going to be in the mold and that kind of stuff. So, absolutely a different skill set.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a piece to that too, where as the sculptor, like you get feedback from the factory and you learn as much as you can to get it as close as you can.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately the factory's always, I think, going to change some stuff. They have to.
Absolutely.
They have to. We're doing these hands out of a softer PVC this time around versus some other plastic, and your tolerance is just wiggled.
Yeah, and it's funny too because every factory has their different like methods and methodologies, and there are some constants, there are some standards, but there's also wiggle room in there too. And one of the big things, even going from like a 6-inch figure to a 4-inch figure, is the minimum wall thickness. Is how thin can I possibly get this thing? And of course, it's going to show up a lot more on a 4-inch figure if I'm doing like, say, a removable hat. Well, the wall thickness for the outer edge of that hat is going to be a lot more noticeable on a 4-inch figure than it would be for a 6-inch figure. But they can kind of cheat that. And it's just a matter of what factory you're working with and what your parameters are for whatever company that you're working for, or yourself, for say like a company like Hasbro, where there's a lot more safety requirements because they're a bigger entity and everything. And you want to make sure safe. Yeah. Like you're taking in concern safety and choking hazards and durability, all of that stuff. So
we talked about this the other day, and I do want to bring it back up when we were talking about like the G.I.JOE classified weapons.
Yes.
And the plastic that they use. And what I've sort of assumed for a long time was that like they're doing that because they've got a team of lawyers telling them that's how it has to be. And because they're Hasbro, that is the biggest toy company on the planet.
Yes.
And so they're a bigger target. There's more risk. So those lawyers are making sure that those little guns and stuff are as kind of kid safe as possible. So they make it out of a softer material. We don't like it, but like that's the reason. And you kind of confirmed that when we spoke.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's for two specific reasons. Number one, to your point, yes, the durability, you can't have a kid, it can't be a sharp point. At the end of the day, Hasbro is still a company that's going to make toys and games for everybody. It's not just for us old guys that are collecting this and just putting it on our shelves. They still want, if a parent decides, hey, I still want to buy this for my kid, then yes, it's still possible that they're going to buy it, and they're not going to choke on it. They're not going to poke their eye out with it or something like that. And then the second reason is durability. So I bought this, I just paid $30, $40. I take the gun out and now it just snaps in half. And so now I'm screwed. So, and then if it's these are highly sought after items now. So it might be very difficult to go back and get another one. We can't just run out to the store and get them like in the old days anymore. So those are the reasons. They're getting better with the plastic, and I know they listen to the fans when it comes to that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of competitors out there now that are doing the quality weapons with a more durable plastic that's more rigid and everything. So they still want to meet their goals, but they still want to make sure that the fans are happy and stuff too with the weapons and all of that. So
so those are great points. I mean, we run Facebook pages and groups and things like that where people are always talking about specifically things like that, but not really knowing the answer. So I really appreciate that answer.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. And it's funny. I wish they would have a little bit more of a dialogue with the fans, not just kind of just saying like, hey, just kind of pleasing everybody. I mean, to answer those hard questions that fans really do want to know. And to me, it's like, just tell them exactly what I know that I learned from them. Just give the fans that. Just don't kind of keep them in the dark over it. Like there is a reasoning and a logic behind the things that they do. And it's not really some kind of like super kept secret in the industry and stuff. They want to make sure stuff doesn't break. They want to make sure people don't get injured when they're playing with it. We actually have to have, we call it the choke tube. And there's this standard tube that the piece either has to be big enough to where it doesn't fall through the tube or small enough to where it slides all the way through the tube. And those are the kind of things that, we have to do that because, you don't want somebody choking on this. Yeah, they're probably not going to do that with a 6-inch figure, but all it takes is one child and that happens. And then, you've got some really bad press.
Yeah. I, for one, like that my Joes have guns that can shoot around corners. So.
It would be handy. I mean, not like Cobra troopers are going to be able to hit you anyway. I mean,
that's true. That's true. Yeah, you don't really need cover. So.
Yeah, they all got the same shooting instructor that the stormtroopers got. So
yeah.
So what other questions do you have for like Zbrush, or what else can I completely just like vomit useless information on? What can I do?
Let's go ahead and pull Zbrush up, and we'll just start. We'll just get into it.
All right. So let's see. I'm gonna do the share screen again thing. Minimize that. So.
There we go.
Can you guys see this?
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
So tell us a little bit about who this is and what this is.
Okay, so this is Sergeant Spectre from Grindhouse Toys, working with Chris Scott and developing a different version, making something familiar yet new to folks. So these guys will be a new version of a newer take on classic O-ring designs. Okay. So, but with a little bit more of a modern feel and everything to them. So, and part of his World War Hell line. It's been super fun to work on it, and like just really feel lucky to be working with him and everything on it. So here he is.
Yeah, I'm gonna interject. He's lucky to be working with you. So some folks, So Chris brought 1 or 2 figures, I think, out to Joe Fest, and he had
he did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then come Joe Lanta a few months later, he had like an army of figures that you had done for him.
Yeah.
And first of all, holy crap, they're amazing. But I couldn't believe how quickly you turned all that stuff out. Like I was really blown away by how quickly you did all that.
Yep. And the digital stuff makes it very it makes it possible to do that, to make them so fast, because I mean, ultimately with these guys, if I'm going to sculpt like say a hand, or if a hand's going to be the hand the exact same way, unless this guy happens to have a skeletal hand. So let's see what that out. But I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, and every time I sculpt this guy, sculpt a new hand.
You created a digital buck.
Yeah, exactly. And then this, I take that, I hit my duplicate button, and now I have a different hand. Right. But the thing with that is, because I'll tell people 2 things when I'm helping them sculpt or helping them learn any of this stuff. A couple of things. Number 1, there's nothing is completely symmetrical unless you're getting something in where it's mechanical, where it's machine made. So even if these hands, I just duplicated and swapped them over a little bit, even though once this thing is in production and once this thing goes through the paint process, you won't see any of the little details I'm about to pull up. But for me anyway, I'll still go in and I'll still make some things. I'll still tweak this hand and change a few things about this, so somebody can't say, oh, well, you just took the hand and you just mirrored it. So, well, I did something different on it. I do stuff.
I like the little pinky broken off.
Yeah, you noticed it. So this hand has the broken pinky, and the other one, this one thing about ZBrush is these files get to be really big. So my computer is 13 years old. No,
I hear the fan kicking.
Hey,
you can hear it. It's chugging.
I have like a MacBook 2014, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
This one's a 2013. So this thing is chugging, but I call it Old Blue, and she's still getting the job done. And I'm still. Arlen teases me about. It's like, dude, how are you still sculpting on it?
I'm sitting here shocked.
Slowly.
Well, like the computer I do most of my work on is this one, and it's I guess it's like six years old, a little more, and it's like it struggles a little bit.
Yeah. So update. I actually have a buddy that works at Apple or whatever, and he got me a great deal. I just got a brand new one that I pulled out the box yesterday.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. I'm probably going to freak out at how fast it is.
So, I asked you this when we went before the show when we were kind of testing things out, and you've got this white background.
Oh yeah,
which probably makes screen grabbing a little easier, maybe.
Oh yes,
but like I have my ZBrush is like just fresh out of the box. I've played with that stuff a little bit, but you have it. I assume you have it set up so every time you open it, there's certain preferences. Like you're sculpting in gray, not the red clay. Yep. You've got the background is white, not black. Yes. I'm looking around to see what else is different. You've got a couple different things across the top.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it just like ZBrush is it's definitely set up so that you can personalize it. I really need to do that at some point. Is like commit to something.
Yeah. Well, for folks out there and for you guys, I'll tell you this: if you dabble in ZBrush, let me just give you a couple little things about this program that I just don't understand. Number one, when you boot this program up, everybody uses this to sculpt. So I never understood, why do I have to tell a sculpting program I have to actually put it into sculpt mode?
Sculpt mode, yeah.
Because I will never understand that. So one of the things that I have, as soon as this opens up, I already have it set to where I'm ready to sculpt, because that's the only thing I use it for. So I never understand that. Number two, most of the stuff on here, a lot of this stuff, you don't need. A lot of this stuff is just a lot of, I mean, honestly, look at all these brushes. In 13 plus years that I've been working in this program, I think I use 6 of these. 6. So I'm going to go in and start deleting a lot of these brushes because, and again, they geared it. It was perfect the way they designed it and everything, because everybody's got different ways in which they work and everything. So they wanted to, just because I might use this particular brush, there's other people that use a different brush. So it gives you kind of that, it's like a buffet. I'm going to come up, I'm going to pick what I want and then leave the other stuff for everybody else. But it gets a little daunting for people, especially when they're trying to learn it for the first time and everything. So a lot of the stuff, like all of this has been changed up here because I've just gotten rid of the stuff I don't use because it just takes up space. And the more space I've got here, the less space I've got to sculpt with and everything. So I just go through and I just delete the stuff, and I just really don't need a whole lot of things. And here's another thing I've tried and tell some new folks that are coming into ZBrush. So you have this new thing, it's called the gizmo, and this is great and everything, but I also learned before the gizmo, I learned the transpose bar. So it was before the gizmo, and you just kind of like drag it out and move things here. Now, a lot of people don't use this or know how to get to it anymore, but the thing about using this bar is that you can measure how big your figure or whatever you're sculpting from this end to this end. The numbers will pop up here. And whatever this is, they call them Z units, but I'll let you in on a secret. Z units is just a millimeter. So this figure is actually 103 millimeters tall. So yeah, so there's things that you can go into. You can go into Z plugin, and these are all the things that were added kind of after ZBrush was created. And I might be speaking wrongly on this, but they're actually kind of like add-on features, kind of like amendments or something to the Constitution or something, but like little things you can just add in there and everything. So they have something in here called Scale Master, where you can figure out the exact scale and do all this. Well, I suck at math, I'm horrible at it, but this actually helps me figure out sizes very, very quickly. So this transpose bar, this old thing, still has a purpose, still has a point in my heart. So Gizmo has its purpose, and the transpose bar, when you turn Gizmo on and off, it switches back over the transpose bar. So I try and tell people that whenever I get the chance now. So just
thank you.
Thing there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And when I try to, especially very new people coming to ZBrush, because when they're coming in, this defaults to the gizmo, and they a lot of times don't even know that this is here, and you can get back to this. And it does it to me. It serves a huge purpose, and you can figure out the scale very, very quickly with that thing. And
I think honestly, like ZBrush, I feel like it was made to like turn people off. like what you're talking about, like it not starting in sculpt. Like anyone who gets ZBrush, they open it up for the first time, they click on the screen, and within about 3 seconds, they've got 50 cubes just floating.
Oh yeah,
and they have no idea what to do with any of it.
Yep.
And you're basically just like dropping a bunch of subtools and not realizing it. And like, what's a subtool? So, yeah, it's absolutely brutal out of the gate.
It's funny, and until same thing. I started with clay. I started with super sculpting. I started with Play-Doh back in the day, and so I come from that background of old school, tangible, working with something. I've worked up to 2-part epoxy when I was doing miniatures. I used wax for my toys and everything. So it took me a while to wrap my head around this. And until a friend of mine actually explained to me, so I call all these different palettes. So I can go to, this is my palette with my figure. This is my starter palette with my Scooby-Doo head. And then this is just a standard thing. Mm-hmm. And so a friend of mine told me, so I'll bring in this in this sphere right here. And so what he told me is just think of this as a ball of clay. And so every time you're creating something, which is also great about ZBrush, I can just keep bringing in balls of clay.
Balls of clay, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and another thing too, I got frustrated when I was first learning ZBrush because I thought, crap, my brain's just not wrapping my head around it, and I'm not getting it. But then I realized that just because someone teaches you something doesn't always make them a good teacher. And the person who was teaching me at the time, amazing sculptor, a stellar sculptor, amazing sculptor, but that didn't also make him a great teacher. Because as a great teacher, and not that I'm some kind of perfect teacher, but you have to figure out that people that you're teaching, everybody learns differently. And this person only had his way of teaching and didn't realize that, hey, dude, that's not how I learn. And maybe that was also on me too. Maybe I needed to let him know, like, hey, I'm not getting it. But once my friend told me this is a ball of clay, and then I'll turn on like the little X frame, and this is a hole. So even if I go to make this sculptable, there's still always going to be this hole in here. And there's this faceting here. So what I'll do is, and this is what my teacher did not tell me. He told me to do it, but he didn't tell me why. So what I would do is you go into geometry, and then, oh no, I actually put it up here. So I actually go in and I'll divide. Where are you? I've been doing this now for so long. Where
are you looking for Dynamesh or the?
Oh, I'm going to divide this. Okay. So it's not even up yet. So I got to do this. So see how this is changing now under geometry, this and this. So it's making the ball smooth. So now this is a little bit more even. So where it looked like this, well, it's still, but the surface looks like this now. It's not faceted anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I'll do is once I get it smooth like this, I'll delete the lower so I don't need all these steps. I delete lower, and then I'll hit Dynamesh. So what this is going to do, now there's no hole at all. So now this is a perfect ball of clay. Right. And now I can hit divide. And now I can do things like when I go to move it, when I go to pull these pieces out, I can mask things. Move them, angle it. And then I can keep hitting, I'll delete lower because it won't Dynamesh if it has all these steps. And I'll just hit Dynamesh again.
Okay. So I want you to move in with me for a couple weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, there's kind of some really high level stuff going on here.
Okay.
So all those little all those steps, and there's a name for it, and it's not steps. I apologize, but that's the thing that's kind of been kicking my ass for a little while.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I'll tell you this: what I'll do is if I want to get back to like a very low Dynamesh, I'll just I go under this thing called, and these are the things like, again, there's a lot of YouTube videos and they'll show you like, hey, they'll say, this is an intro course to ZBrush. And they're great. They're great videos, and I've learned a lot of them. But to me, there's still that people get into ZBrush so much and they've been using it for so long, they forget that person that they're teaching. This might be the very first time that they've touched ZBrush. So to me, you have to talk to them as if, kind of like I tell people, explain it to me as if I'm 5 years old. Think about it like that, because it might be this person's very first time even opening the program. Yeah. And so what I'll do is just show them these little things instead of showing you like a speed sculpt or how fast I can do this. This is how you'll do kind of things like this. So like, say if I want this even, I'll go back to geometry and I'm going to go under something called Z Remesher. And I go, and I'll tell you why after I do it. So I'm just going to hit Z Remesh. So it's going to drop it back down to a very, very low level. And see, so now my faceting is back.
Well, based on what you set it to do, right?
Yeah,
so you can Z remesh and go up as well, right?
Yes, but what I want to do is go down, and I'll show you why. Because I'm older. My dad was a wood shop person, and so I've learned how to use various grits of sandpaper to get something smooth.
That's a perfect analogy for what you're doing right now.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. So what I'll do is I'll divide up. So now these points are up here. But if I go to smooth, say if I want to smooth this thing out, I've got to use a different grit of sandpaper to get it this smooth. Right. Well, the way I look at these subdivision levels, each level is a different level of sandpaper. So I go from rough to smooth. So if I want to really smooth something out right now, I'm really smoothing this out right now at this very low level. But if I back up, if I try and do that thing that same up here in this high level, it's not doing it.
The same is true if you're adding material. If you were going to do like clay ropes or even like a dam standard or clay buildup.
Yep.
Same thing. Would you mind kind of demonstrating those differences as well, please?
Okay, so
because you would more likely be doing that first.
Okay. So what is it that you want to do? I'm sorry. So ropes?
It doesn't matter. Just do clay buildup. That's my number one brush.
So you want to use a clay buildup, and we're just adding something. You just want to do like something like
that. Yeah.
Okay. And so you want to smooth it out?
Well, do it at the low level and then do it at the high level.
Sure. Okay. Yep. So here's low level. So there's my high level. So, and this is how, I mean, it would look better than this, but if I was roughing out like anatomy or something like that. So,
if you could make the brush smaller, zoom in a bit, and do like dam standard.
Okay.
Because I don't know that it's coming. What I'm trying to get you to show is coming across.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
okay.
So this is a better example. Yeah.
Okay. And so you want to do something like that, and then see it on the high level like that.
Yeah. See how it already smoothed it out though?
So it smoothed it out. So what's going to happen is if I try and smooth, I want to get this because I'm really super anal about this kind of stuff. I want this stuff to look like glass. I want this surface to be smooth. At this level, if I try smoothing this out, I'm going to be here a while. I could do it. But if I do this on a lower level, that might be too low. Step up here. Step up here.
This took me so long to figure out. This took me so long to like within the last 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
I finally figured this out.
Yeah.
Because I was just instead of switching between the levels, I had seen multiple videos where they said you could do it, but they would do hotkeys or they would click so damn fast. I had no idea what they actually did. Yeah. So I knew it was a thing you could do, but I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah. And
So I was going through and like dynameshing and
Yep.
and doing all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And then it creates all like where you call those palettes up there, it's creating different palettes. It was just doing all this stuff without explanation.
Yeah, and again, it's just a matter of how people are explaining it. And you have to realize, the folks showing, they have to realize, like, hey, you know what? This is the first time that they've done this. Let's see because what I'll do is, do I have it? Okay, I'll actually save copies of things. So I make tons of copies. So like, say these flames, when I was doing these, I think I still have them. Nope. But what I'll do is I make sure that I still have a version of this. And somewhere in all of this, I still have a version of this where I still have all of those steps. So if I needed to smooth any of these sections down, I can scroll down again. I deleted it for this one because in order to make these cuts and to make these adds, for some reason, ZBrush won't do it, at least not the way I do it. Maybe there's a way. If I have those steps in there, if I have those different grits of sandpaper, I call them, then it won't let me add or cut pieces out. So I had to end up cutting this out. But I'll actually still
like you just did a Boolean operation and it wouldn't let you do that. Interesting.
Yeah. So
how frustrating was that when you finally came to realize that's what was happening?
Yeah, it took me a while because one of the other things too that bothered me that I didn't know how to do it. So again, I'm thinking of this like an old school ball of clay, and I just want to add a hand now. I just want to be able to add something. I want to essentially merge these two pieces together, but I still want to be able to have my subdivisions. I still want to be able to blend these things together. And what happens is if I start to go add clay, but then I go to smooth it out. See how it's still doing this? It still treats them as two separate pieces. So this is, and I asked a friend of mine, she's an amazing sculptor and everything. She's done stuff for Hasbro. She does miniatures and stuff like that. I told her, I want to blend this stuff together. I don't want this. I want this to be smooth. So this is what she taught me. This is
real quick. I spent 10 hours watching YouTube videos to figure this shit out.
Did you figure it out?
Yeah, but I did it like I finally did it on this one thing I was working on.
Okay.
And I have that video saved so I can go back.
Okay.
But it's enough steps that it's not in my brain yet.
Okay.
Like I would have to go watch these videos again.
So I will show you then. So now I can't do anything with this. Okay, and it sucks. And I want my steps back because now that I've meshed them together, I can't step down, smooth it out, step up, smooth, step. I can't do that process I was just showing you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dynamesh this. No, not that low. Let's see. Okay, so now it's great. Now I can smooth it, but I still don't have my steps yet. And it's still kind of at a high, and like my high active points, and I don't want this to get into the millions just yet. I still want this to be able to have a very low subdivision. I'll even check things. You can start to see how the mesh is making these weird lines and everything here. So actually, I'll show you this. We're going to do the same thing because I'm super excited and I love talking about this stuff. So we're going to take these flames. I'm going to show you the exact same thing. So of what I'm trying to do. So this thing is 1,000,000 points. I can't smooth anything, and I don't have my steps anymore. They're all gone. So it's already dynameshed, and this is what I was about to show you. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to hide the first one, and all I'm going to do, I'm going to go under geometry. I'm going to hit ZRemesher. And this is going to take a little while because what's happening is it's going through, the computer's going through and it's counting every point within this mesh. And so when it gets into the millions, it takes it a little bit longer to count. So this is when A, I hope to God that it's doing it, and B, this is when I'll step away from my computer for a second. It gets into 3 million, and this is what sucks when you're doing digital sculpting, because everybody thinks, oh well, yeah, can you get that to me in like a few minutes? Dude, it depends on how long the computer takes. It still takes some time. So luckily we're doing pretty good right now. But I'll show you. It's almost there. We're gonna make it. Please God.
Yeah. So this is great for me because you're kind of hitting a lot of stuff right at my level, but we skipped so much stuff.
Oh yeah.
So even just like, you know, all your little balls of clay, each one of those is a sub tool. And so, you know, on that right side, there's all these different categories. There's the sub tools, there's geometry, and they're labeled appropriately. Like things are kind of where they should be with the label they've got. But like bringing new sub tools in is called doing an append. Like if I want to bring in STL files that I've created someplace else, you can do a single append. You can do the, like up at the top, it's 3D print. Z plugin. Yeah. And then you've got 3D print master multi append. There you go. And it's like, what a game changer it was just to learn that.
Yes.
And one great thing about ZBrush is when it does the appends, like if you've created stuff in another STLs in another software, when you do a multi append, it puts them in the right places.
Oh yeah,
like everything being at 000 on the XYZ. Like there's a lot of real friendly things about ZBrush.
Yep.
But they're kind of hidden, and you just eventually got to figure them out.
Yeah. Well, one of the great things, and I'll just jump back to this real quick, using this guy as an example to what you were just saying. The great thing about this is that the best thing that ZBrush has ever done in the last few updates, the last few years, they finally added folders. And it made things so easy because this guy is, I can't remember how many parts this guy is, but every one of these parts, there's parts on parts, and there's parts. We would get, when I would first start at Hasbro, I'd get things, there would be like 72 parts in here, all the way down through here. And we're talking about all the little discs. We're talking about all the little pins, all the internal geometry, all of that. Every one of these buckles and bolts and bullets and the rings on the grenade. And it would be so many parts and it'd be so hard to keep track of. And so once they added folders, I could do all of it. I could just put stuff away. And I'm super anal about like organizing stuff. Like even when I'm doing Photoshop, I got to have folders so I can know I want to turn the arms off real quick. I want to turn the hands off real quick. If I'm doing photos, I need to turn the helmet on or something like that. So I need to know I need to get rid of something so I can just work on that or focus on it. One of the things I'll do is if I have this many parts on something, I'll just take something like here. I also like to have this on just so I can see what I'm working on at the time. And I'll just go up here and I'll clone it. And it just sends it to another palette. So now if I can just work on the legs. I don't have to worry about looking at all that stuff at the same time right now. And if I screw up over here, my original file is still fine. I don't have to worry about that.
But so how do you make your clone apply to the actual file?
Oh yeah. So say I've just done, I just want to do this. I just want his legs. It's going to look like crap, but just for the purposes of demonstration. So he's going to be like the basketball player. He's going to be super tall. Okay, now he's this mutant basketball player with those legs. But so now I've got these legs. What I will do first, because I found this out the hard way, I'll just rename this file new. Just make the name different somehow. Yep. Because what happens is when I go over here, and now I want to just go here and I want to append or insert. Append will drop the whatever I'm bringing in. It'll drop them all the way down here. So I don't want to do that. But it keeps
the original as well.
It keeps the original as well. And so, oh God, don't hit delete all, Carter. We're on TV. Done that too. Just delete, not delete all. So if I go to append, since I'm working on the legs, it'll drop the legs. Oh, no, I just hit append again. Come on, Carter, we're on TV. All right. If I go here, and then I hit insert, sorry. Legs new. Now it puts them right here, and I still have my original legs. But what happens is if I don't name this differently, if it has the exact same name, and ZBrush will actually add a number. If I clone it,
okay,
it'll add a little number so you still know. But when you're moving fast and it's 2 a.m, you're trying to make a deadline that's 8 a.m. the next day, and I go to append this or insert it, if they're kind of the same name and I've done this, I've added the exact same legs by accident, and then I've deleted the wrong ones. So that's why I'll go through, that's why I'll clone it first, do whatever I have to do over here. And then if ZBrush crashes or something, I still have my original, I can still go back to it. But I'll do the changes over here, and then I'll bring it over, then I'll append it or insert it. That way I'm not having to hide all of this stuff while I'm working to just try and work on the legs. So that's just something I do. So that's why I'll just send them somewhere else, work on them. If I'm just working on the boots, I'll send the boots somewhere, clone the boots over somewhere, work on those and bring those back if I'm doing a hand and all of that kind of stuff. So
we had a question in the chat. Somebody was asking if you have a tutorial YouTube channel.
Of what in particular?
So I assume they're asking if you have a YouTube channel where you do this.
Okay, great question, and this is something that I'm trying to do this year. So
seriously,
yes, I'm working on doing this. When I've spoken at some conventions and some of the ZBrush summits, people have asked me this because I don't believe there's a lot of videos out there that kind of approach this from a very, very beginner viewpoint. And that was something I always wanted to. I remember being super frustrated with this program coming out, and I almost gave up sculpting because of this, because I felt like time had just passed me by. So now I don't want anyone to ever feel the way I did when I was trying to learn this program. And honestly, this is this is like looking at airplanes compute control panel
schematic
when you open this up.
Yeah.
And to me, everyone, if you want to do sculpting, you want to be in this industry doing this, or just doing it for fun, this to me is the best program to learn to do that. But the interface really, really is daunting. But yes, to answer that, I will be starting that. Mark, I'm probably going to ask you, because again,
I in my head, I'm like, after the show, we're
yes,
talking
please,
about this.
yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this. I'm still learning all the new things with the kids and what they're doing and all their TikToks and all of this stuff. And it's just
oh, you just made my month, my year. Wait, what's the House of Friends theme song go? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk after.
Okay.
So Benjamin, not yet is the answer, but it's coming.
And yeah, and I want folks to be able to just ask me anything on this stuff. Except maybe I'm still learning rendering, but in ZBrush and poly painting and stuff. But as far as like sculpting and putting stuff together for an action figure, yeah, I'll help you with that all day. But when we're getting to rendering and and lighting and stuff, I haven't gotten into that aspect, because usually there's somebody else that'll do that, or I do that into.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing, right? Like a complete outsider might think 3D design, they can do
everything.
The whole world, right? Like video game sprites, things to 3D print, things for production, things for movie special effects. It's all different, vastly different stuff. And like Carter and me, like we are making designs that will become a physical object in the real world, and it's real specific, and there's a shitload to it. I'm impressed you want to learn how to render and paint, because it's a whole other language. It's a whole other world.
And and again, there's I've seen some people do amazing renders and everything in ZBrush, but they also do a lot of post editing in Photoshop too. And even with Photoshop, I can hold my own in it, but I don't consider myself super like a professional high end with it. So for me to not really know how to render in here, and then
so perfect example, right? If you open up ZBrush and you step away for a couple minutes or 45 seconds, like it's gonna go to sleep and it's gonna start showing but it's like a screensaver of stuff that people have used in ZBrush, and it's all very attractive and nice. None of it's articulated action figures. it's scenes or statues, kind of. And more often than not, it's painted and it's a nice, pretty render. But it's not what I do.
It's not. And when I was talking to some friends of mine at another company and stuff, and we were talking about when people bring portfolios and stuff in and they show us, and the thing it's like, it's great. I like the renders and stuff. It's nice, but we want to see this, because renders can also hide a lot. And I want to see the gray model or that red wax, which I'm not a fan of, but I know people use it. But
I like it, and I think for portfolio wise, I think I need to change it up, because I should be presenting what a company wants to see. But yeah, I like the red clay. So we had another question. So it was just like, did Carter put in the articulation in the model? And the answer is yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you completely built this from nothing.
Yeah, and I'm weird because Arlen and I are both kind of weird in this way, to where we love doing the articulation, and but there are a lot of people, because it is that engineering aspect of it, that there's not as much it's creative to me, figuring it out, like which one's going to give the best range of motion and what kind of articulation to use. But there isn't as much just fun aspect of it to folks, where it's just I'm going to do the sculpting, I'm going to do the engineering part. So they're big.
It's a bit real interesting. I had this conversation with Corey Cantaloupe, and a couple of things that he's said, like you echo, like he likes the engineering part. I know I like the engineering part. So it's interesting how, when you distill things down to like who's making action figures, you find a lot of people have the same, like, the brain.
Oh yeah, and I would literally have vendors and stuff, like when I would have new kids coming out of college, or like new vendors and stuff coming to us. They haven't done articulation, but they can do like a really nice looking figure and everything. And to me, I'm like, look, I want you guys I want to accentuate your strengths, and I want to focus on that. So if you can give me a great figure, great, because I can send it to somebody else and have them articulate it, and they'll be like, oh yeah, dude, I'm on articulating stuff. So many times I would just have you do the figure, and I send it to somebody else. I'll let them articulate, and we're good to go. Because I want this, at the end of the day, this should be fun. At the end of the day, all this stuff should be fun. So if articulation is not your gig, if that's not your thing, then fine. If it's going to take it away from you wanting to do an action figure, then that's great. Then I'll send it to somebody else. But it's great to be able to sculpt and articulate from start to finish. You're going to be a lot more desirable in this industry if you can do both, but you're not going to be shunned also if you can't do it. There's a toy company right now that a lot of their articulation is done within their factory overseas. It's not done actually by their sculptors. So
really?
I'll tell you who that is later, but you might be able to know. You might be able to tell.
So
McFarlane.
Okay, we're canceled.
I'm guessing. I'm guessing based on how that stuff looks.
So
I don't have the inside track on that, but I've seen those figures.
You can tell.
That's exactly what comes to mind every time I look.
So Carter, you sculpt from scratch, and then do your articulation.
Yes.
A lot of people actually would prefer like something called like a buck, or something that they can say is already articulated in a sense, and then they can build from it. So what's your sort of stance on that, or have you done it both ways, and how do you feel about it?
To me, if that gets the job done quicker, there's also more consistency with that too. If there's already an established buck. So ultimately, we're all working towards like deadlines. Everybody needs stuff done by blank. If there's already a buck that a person has approved and they're saying, hey, can you just use this buck? Absolutely. I'm 1,000% fine with that. And especially for like, if we're getting into like an O-ring or something like this, this design right now that I have the base figure is already done for this guy, I know that the elbow joints are going to be the same. I know that the knee joints are going to be the same. So I can kind of just go back. I'll just make duplicates of this. And imagine this thing right now, this guy's in a solid piece. But let's say I'll duplicate it. So what I'll do is go in. Okay, everybody pray for me because knife curve is the new brush that crashes ZBrush in a heartbeat. So it's great when it works, but when it doesn't, it's bad. So this might crash.
Yeah, I am so curious how this is gonna work.
Okay, so I don't know why it does crazy stuff, but yeah. So I'll just auto group it, which makes these a different color, and then I can just select these, can split it, and I'll delete it. So I don't even need this stuff. Split hidden, and I'll delete that. Okay. So if this was
that was
whoa.
I spent so much time trying to figure that out.
Dude, okay, yes, we'll talk about this podcast afterwards. Okay, because we're gonna I want to teach people this kind of stuff. So now what happens is, and again, imagine if these legs, I can pull up maybe I'll pull up the original file, because the original file I have has these as separated pieces. But now I have a duplicate. So if I were to have this, if they were separate pieces, then I duplicate the legs again. And now I will just do, we'll just do this. This will be easier. I want to be able to show people this quickly. So this, again, this is just for tutorial purposes. This is not going to look, it's going to look nasty. So I'm going to split that. So if I had this as an original piece, I'm not going to even worry about that stuff. Again, let's see if this brush works. So far, it's doing pretty good today. Up now, there it goes. All right, it's not doing it now. It's tired. It's the weekend. I get it.
So what's interesting about this tool, because like you were saying, it's new, is the way is it like the order in which you can draw a line, then a curve, and then a line?
Yeah. The other tools it's different. So when you're using clip curve, so all of these, there's the clip curve, there's the knife curve, and there's the slice curve. All of them in theory cut, but not really. I'll show you the difference. So clip curve, it looks like it cut it, and it did, but see how it does this? See how this has this extra lip?
Yep.
What a clip curve actually does, it actually just mashes. It takes this toe that I just, in theory, cut off, and it just mashes it backwards.
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the taller this is, whoops, the worse it gets. So see how it's mashed?
Yep.
So a clip curve, now if you want to go in and do it, if I'm using a clip curve and I want to cut this really quickly, what I'll do is this. And I have to cut it at very small increments. So now it's doing it. Now it won't mash it. Because what it's doing is I'm cutting off smaller pieces.
Can you turn on the I can't think of what it's called, the grid, so we can see what the yeah. So now do the slice and show us the front side.
So I'll do
no, the flat side.
So I'll do. Oh yeah. So what it does.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's just mashing it. It's taking the same geometry and just
like that's a flat surface. It should just be a one.
You would think,
side,
but
or one face.
So what?
But yeah, it's just because it's smashing it. You've still got all those points and lines.
Yeah.
And faces.
So what it's honestly doing is just this. It's literally just doing this really quickly.
Yep.
That's all it's doing.
Yep.
That's why it looks the same. So when you get into this, so that's the clip curve. If you go into the next one, the knife curve, which, God, if it works, let's see. So the reason it's not working now, and I've started to learn why, this brush only works if this geometry is perfect. Right now, because of this has holes in it, it won't cut it. It's a really pompous, bougie brush.
Did it just try to create a polygroup?
It will create a polygroup because it's lazy, because I have not closed this hole. Because somewhere in this mesh, I'll close holes. And that's why. It didn't like it because this is still over here. This has holes. So all conditions have to be perfect. Let me just split hidden so we just have this. for this to work, let's see if it works this time. So yeah, that's why it didn't work last time, because the hole was fine, but because this was still attached to it, it didn't like it. It won't tell you what it doesn't like. You just have to guess.
You gotta kind of figure it out, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why this brush is great if all conditions are perfect, if you haven't missed anything. So sometimes I go to this brush. The other brush is Trim Curve Brush. I'll save Slice Brush for last, because that's the one I'll use, because I know that one will always work. So Trim Curve Brush is also, it's like the Clip Curve, where it'll slice if it works. But what it does, it creates a new poly group. And notice how the mesh is different now too. So it's actually like slices it, but makes something totally different. So say if I want, I'll do this. Don't mind this. This is higher end stuff. I'll get to that later, but I'm just edge looping this. And then I'm going to edge loop this, but I'll show you what the good thing about using that. So now if I want to just extend this toe out, ooh, not that part. So Trim Curve Brush has its reasons where I can't think of anything right off the top of my head that I can use as a good example that folks could understand really quickly, but I'll come up with something. But it gives it another poly group, so you can use that to make something else or something. This is also, I think this brush, I think you can undo this brush too. Because some of them, if you slice it, you can't undo it. Okay, yeah.
You usually get a pop-up. Like if there's in ZBrush, if there's an operation that you're not going to be able to undo, usually it pops up and warns you.
Now this brush, so this is why this one's different. This is why I wanted to save this one last. So a slice curve brush will do it. It'll cut it, but it's like, hey, I still want to have the toe. I don't want to cut it off. I still want to do something with it later. Okay, sweet. So it'll just cut it into another subtool. So now I can split this off and say if I just want to have the toes, and I want to split this one off and still have the toes. Now the problem with this is if I split this off, I think this, oh no, this will do it too. So if I split this one off, and I can just close holes in auto group. So now it's its own piece. Mm-hmm. And then, and so now I got, I'm not gonna, oops. Okay, gotta hide it. Close holes and then auto groups there. So now I think this one, yeah, that's the problem with this one. It won't go, it might go backwards. I might be able to undo. It should bring another, yeah, it'll actually come back too. So actually all of them you can kind of.
So that bar he's sliding at the top is kind of the undo bar.
Yes.
Nice.
Which I wish there was a way it helps with this one with ZBrush, but sometimes I wish it was in a different spot because I'll fat finger things all the time and I put a lot of stuff. I put my Dynamesh right here. So when I go to hit Dynamesh, sometimes I go too far and I go and do that. Like, oh crap, what did I do? And realize I hit the wrong thing and I went too far back. So it's just a little too close to this. So yeah, there you go. But so the original things is, so if I have like original piece, if I already have this done and I'm sculpting new legs, but I still want to have this articulation in here, what I'll do is I'll just slice both of them. And so now I can just take this piece and I can glue it to a new leg. And I can just do the exact same thing. I'll cut this leg off, or I'll cut this piece off, have this as a separate piece, and then I'll take this piece and I'll glue it to this piece, and now I have the exact same joint. And then I can just go in and
then you can just smooth it out and make it work.
If there's not a buck or something like that. And actually, I'll be doing that today, as a matter of fact, on another figure. So this exact same thing.
And I bet I know what figure
you probably do. Yeah, you might. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So, we're a little over an hour. We're, no one's learning ZBrush in an hour. But there is one other thing I would like you to show, and that if you go back into the boot, you've got a beautiful leather texture.
Oh yeah. You can see it.
Can we talk about that? Because like that's something you can do in ZBrush that you can't easily do anywhere else that I've encountered. Is being able to put these nice textures on things. It's it's a deal breaker for
Okay.
a lot of stuff. So if you could talk us through
Sure.
that a little bit,
Let's
please.
see. So in order to get that texture, what I'll do is you have to come up with something where you're working on a piece. Make sure I've got the right piece. You usually have to have it up to at least 1 million. For some reason, it just has to have a lot of geometry to actually have the texture. So what I'll do is I'm going to bring in an alpha. Let's see. And let me bring this in and I'll explain it. Where did I keep this? Brushes and alphas. And that's leather. We'll go with this.
Do you buy these?
I'll make them.
Pretty much, or
Yep.
You do? You do the whole Photoshop thing?
Yeah, I'll actually do the Photoshop thing. So, and there's a great tutorial from a good friend of mine that's actually showed me how to do it. I learned through that tutorial, so it's super easy. And yep, I can find that link and I can share it with if folks want to know what that is. So now I've got this at 1 million. I'm not going to go into the other process of how to, because that's way too complicated right now. So I'm just going to go into the basic method. So I'm going to switch to my brush, to my damn standard, and I want to add this. I want to change it to a drag rectangle. So what I'm trying to do is essentially kind of make a stamp. I'm going to go back to my alpha that I brought in. I'm going to find my leather alpha, and then there it is right there.
So real quick, damn standard as a brush cuts into your sculpt instead of adding onto it.
So, all right, let me show you. In fact, yeah, let me show you with alpha. Let me show folks what this brush actually does. So it just does that by default. If I go in and drag a rectangle, now it's not going to, I can't do strokes, but it just drags out like that. So it's just confines it to one area, one space. So that's what I'm using because I just want it to essentially be a stamp. So I've added leather to this stroke now, to this, I call it the stamp. I'm just going to do that. But right now it's coming in way too aggressive. So what I have to do is I'll dial down my Z intensity.
What? Oh, you just hotkeyed it?
I just hit the space bar. The space bar will pull up this same stuff up here. So if you just hold down.
Why that particular window? Is it always that window?
So for me, it's usually up here, Z intensity, but I got rid of it because I knew I could get to it quickly right here. And I didn't need it open all the time because
I've always had to get all on the right side gone to, is it geometry surface or something like that? And then.
So that's what I didn't want to try and show folks this time.
Yeah. Sorry.
Only because.
Well, that's fine. I've never. I heard you tap something and that window came up and I was like, whoa.
So this is it's not anything I design or anything. If anybody opens ZBrush, you can get to this real quickly, and it's just the space bar, and it's the exact same stuff that's normally up here, and normally Z intensity would be right here, but I just got rid of it because I wanted to put this up here, and I made it a custom. So, and I knew I could get to it very quickly. And it's the same things up here, and you can kind of see them when I'm highlighting up here. You can see them up here as well. But Z intensity, because I got rid of it. This is just me.
So I wasn't even right. I was thinking this was a different.
Oh no,
you're good. It's different than what I thought it was.
So so now that I dropped the Z intensity down, because however I made the alpha, it comes in really aggressive. And so then I just do this, and I'll just keep going over it. Now this is if I wanted to do the quick down and dirty leather texture. Because yes, to your question earlier with the surface, that's when I'm going into.
It'll apply it to the whole thing.
That's when I do
and then that creates problems because it's only it's like if you shined a light onto the thing, like when it creeps around the top, it gets stretched out and stuff.
So what I'll do is I just recently learned this. When I go to I'll pull up my masking brush. Well, I'll just hit hold Control, and I'll switch this to freehand. So say it's starting, you can start to see how it's starting to wrap and pull around the mesh. This is what I'll end up doing for that. So I know where it's going to do that. I'll just mask that area real quick. Then I'll invert the mask by holding control and tapping out here somewhere on the screen. So I'm just holding down control, bam, 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 bam. And then I just keep doing this. And again, also bear in mind, this is also something that I've been doing this for so many years where I know, hey dude, this figure's only going to be 4 inches. So that boot texture is going to be like somewhere like around there. So sometimes I get lost in the weeds where, oh, it's got to look like this and look like this. Well, at the end of the day, it's still only going to be a 4-inch figure. So there's things where, okay, that might be a little overlap or something right there, but there's also going to be a lot.
You've got that feathering on the mask, yeah, on the edge.
Oh, whoops. And so now when I get rid of the mask, it matches up a little bit better. It's not doing that pulling. It's not doing that stuff where it's like pulling across the mesh and everything. So I'll do it when I test it. Okay, yeah. I don't like where it's doing that right there. So I'll just mask it a little bit where I know the edges are going to be. If I've already made something right there, just so it doesn't interfere. Pull control and tap out here, and then just do that. Now, if I wanted to go with something like a honeycomb design where it's not as organic as leather, that's when I come in. That's when I'll unwrap it. That's when I UV map it. That's when I'll project all. And that's just a process. It's a process. And that might be another hour showing everybody that. And then ZBrush might crash while I'm showing everybody. And then I get frustrated. And then like, oh, the podcast is over because I'm mad.
So, you know, we've like, it's like a weird love-hate thing. And it's not exclusive to ZBrush.
No.
We were talking about Maya earlier. Like, I didn't get deep enough into Maya where I pushed it to crash it ever. But like Fusion 360 crashes on me, ZBrush crashes on me. It's just, you're dealing, at the end of the day, you're forcing the machine to do an insane amount of math. And sometimes whether you're on a Mac or a PC, they just say, hey, you know what? Fuck you, move the math. I'm done. I don't want to do math anymore today. And I have to respect that.
And it's weird because it's like that weird, it's almost like it's like a bad ex or something. Like, yep, I'm gonna treat you like this, but you're gonna come back to me every time and I'll still crash on you. Like, come on, can we make it work this time?
Come on, baby.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, I got a question.
Sure.
With you moving through sort of like your, I guess you want to call it like your workflow, as well as you do, looking at this figure, can you kind of summarize like the amount of hours that you put into this?
Okay, sure. I would say for this guy, let's say 40 hours. And that's also me taking breaks. That's me going out and taking a hike or something like that. So, all right, we'll take off 10 hours. We'll say 30 hours. If it's just me, heads down, just working on this guy, no breaks, no nothing, about 30 hours. And that's also taking into account, hey, I just tried this. Oh, this doesn't work. Let me try this again. Oh, okay, I like this a little bit better. Because there's still a lot of experimenting I'll do, especially when it comes to wrinkles. I'll do wrinkles and then crap, I don't like how that wrinkle looks. So I'll go back, redo it. Wrinkles are just one of those weird things where it takes me a while to do them, where I get them where I like them. So I would say about with this guy with 30 hours. But there are things which makes this really good. Like say this pouch. Let me pull up the original guy because
So while you're pulling that up, so that was a thing we talked about whenever we spoke a week ago, whatever. Sometimes you're zoomed in so damn close and you're working and it's like, oh man, I went too far with, and we were talking about hair. And it's like, I really went too far with this. This is way too stylized and hardcore. And then you zoom out or you print it and you're like, where'd it go? Like I didn't go far enough. And it's like, I imagine you get better at it, but I don't think that's something that's going to completely.
It's not. It's honestly not. And even with, I mean, again, you're like you said, you're zoomed in. These textures and everything, it's saving, and I'll show you. And this is a big file too, and now I've got a couple of big files open, so it's chugging a bit. I should have actually just wiped ZBrush clean and come back with a fresh. But it's still thinking because I got a lot open. Thank you, Blue. Thanks for holding it.
It's such a beautiful figure.
Thank you. You guys made my day. Thank you. So this guy, what I'll do is, so this is the original body. This is dad to all the other sculpts. So this was the original one. This is why it's chugging, because this thing is 45 million. I usually like to try and keep things around 15, maybe 20 at the most, and this guy's double that. But what I'll do is, just to kind of get an idea, when I'm sculpting something, I'll actually, if I can fit it on screen, I'll actually zoom out. Oh yeah, this guy's actually only going to be this big. So then, can I still see the texture here? Kind of. Will the machine pick it up? Yeah, probably. In production, will the paint fill it in? Maybe. But it's a hit and miss. I'll even print some of my own stuff out thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be great. Oh God, that didn't come out at all. It's too fine. But your original question, as far as like how long does it take to do these things, there are things like this grenade. I'll make this grenade somewhere else, and now I'll always have this grenade and I can bring it in. So it might take a little bit more time making this grenade actually manufacturable, because I have to have no undercut. So I had to draft it straight back into the strap. I'll take a little time and do that on the front end, and like this little piece here, that's not going to show up. When we finally send the files over to Hong Kong, I'll just.
So this is a grenade you've used before.
And so I'll just have this grenade. Once it's done, these buckles, like I'll make a brush. Let's see.
So when I spoke to Arlen, I asked him, like, do you have just like a big library of like buckles and buttons and all this stuff? Because it seems like that's the way to go. Like there's like those buckles that clip together.
Oh yeah.
Like they're prolific. They are used in real world. They are used on all kinds of stuff. And then you see them on like figure after figure after figure. And I'm like, you know, I assumed like Arlen's probably got like a library.
Oh yeah.
Like that. He's like, no, I just resculpted every time.
Oh,
really? Fucking crazy.
Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like each one of these pieces, I'll go to my clone again, because this thing's getting really dense. So let's go over here. And so I'll pull up, because you need like something for it to kind of, I'll just say stamp onto. And so like each one of these buckles, I've made somewhere a long time ago. Like I've got a clip, I've got this, I've got the grenade.
Man, that's got to be helpful. Jesus.
Yeah, so many pouches. And so what I'll do is every time, and so here's baseball grenade, I've got a flashbang grenade. So every time, we're working smarter, not harder. And I want to, with this industry and with a lot of industries, everybody wants everything faster now. They want things yesterday. And so like even with this guy, not that guy, so many military guys. There he is. What I'll do is, so here's a pouch. There's his waist pouch right there. I just made one, and then bring it in and I just duplicate it. So I'll just have whatever my single item is, I'll just have it up here above his head because it's already centered, and just bring it in. I'll scale it. Same thing with the buckles. The bullets, that's just one bullet that I just brought around. So any of those, any kind of things like that, I have a library of now different military boots, both articulated and unarticulated, to where I can just bring it in. Because once I've done it once, like I'm not going to keep the laces are a pain in the ass to do, so I'm not going to keep doing all of those and all of these pouches and stuff. And yeah, I'll have a library of it. I've got different belts, because once I've done it and I like it, great. And but the thing about it is, like when I was old school wax or something, or epoxy or any of that kind of stuff, did it once, great. You got to do it again every time because you're not going to have copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time.
And you can go in and like they don't have to be the same. Like you bring it in and you're so close to where you're at, you can tweak the laces, tweak the texture.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like modify everything to work.
Yes. Yeah. And these same boots, I can use these boots. Another great thing about digital, I can use these boots for a 6-inch figure. I can use it for a 4-inch figure. Of course, so I'll put more wrinkles and details in them if I'm using it for a 6-inch figure, but I'm not going to completely reinvent the wheel and completely start over and completely start as long as it's close, as long as the design is close for this kind of boot. If it is a boot that I don't have, then I'll just make a new boot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't need to make the soles every time. I don't need to make the laces every time. But again, that's contingent on if the design is still the exact same as the one I already have. So, oh my God, thank you, computer, for not crashing on me today. So there you go.
That's awesome.
So this is actually, I can't take credit for this head. This head is a placeholder that Artwann let me borrow, so I've got a stand-in head from somebody else. So, but yeah. So there you go. What else? What else can I help with? I don't know how long you guys were going, but like I said, I'll be here all day if you want to talk toys. I don't care. So.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I mean, we could be here all day. But yeah, so let's call our little ZBrush thing done.
Okay.
And let's talk printing in Joe a little bit.
Okay, I'm gonna shut my ZBrush off then, because let my computer take a break from it. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Cool down a little.
Yeah. I'm so happy it did not crash. Every time I give a presentation, the thing crashes.
See?
Yeah, every time.
With us, everything goes smooth, baby.
Yeah.
No, that was awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Very good.
Am I still? Okay. I think I stopped screen sharing, but I don't know. Can you guys?
No, you did.
It's your PC is still pushing it, but I turned it off.
Okay, good. All right. So, okay, just make sure you're not just staring at whatever's on my laptop.
I was working before we went on, and I was listening to a podcast. Damn it, the one Bobby does with Ryan Laserman.
Is that not 5 Point?
3POA.
3POA. Yeah, not 5. Yeah. 3. Yes. Yeah.
So they were talking about the Street Humans Kickstarter that I guess recently did not work, and I don't know where maybe he'll come back. But so they were talking about this Kickstarter, and had you guys followed that at all? The Street Humans?
No.
So I think the idea was it's supposed to be like cannon fodder for your superheroes to beat up. So if you it's just people.
Okay.
But it didn't work, and they were kind of somebody had done like a really good video examining. Welcome back, sir.
Oh, was it me?
Well, you dropped for a minute.
Oh, Mac is still tired. I'm giving it the day off.
No worries. No worries.
Okay.
So what I was saying is they were talking about the Street Humans Kickstarter that didn't work, and I'd asked Artwann and Mike if they had paid attention.
So this was there was like some dudes in tank tops. And
yeah. This was Shartimus Prime, I believe. It was his. But somebody had done a really good video just kind of examining the Kickstarter and kind of like where maybe it could have done better or something. But one of the things they brought up was whether it was just the renders or if it was just like the resin models that they had used to kind of show it, that even though the pants, like whether it was jeans or cat, whatever it was, the right leg and the left leg were just mirrored versus individually sculpted. And I mean, you can still mirror something as long as you go in and kind of change it. But when you've got like the wrinkles and the folds and they're symmetrical, like even if you don't know it, your brain does. Your brain goes, something's wrong with that. Yeah. Like it's I don't know if that's uncanny valley necessarily, but it's like your brain knows that's wrong.
Oh yeah.
But I hadn't looked closely enough at those figures to notice it.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that. Yeah.
But like as soon as they said it, and I zoomed in and looked at one, I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
I can't believe that was the photo they were sharing and showing.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild pants to me.
Well, I think you definitely pick it up on a 6-inch figure, like, because you
Yeah.
expect 6-inch figures to have just that much more detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with and especially now, folks you're paying upwards to, especially like a Kickstarter or something like that, you're paying upwards to like 30, sometimes like $40 a figure. So, and especially now, there's a lot out there that people expect, because there's so much great stuff out there, and people's eyes are getting a lot more attuned to seeing that kind of level of detail, and they're expecting that. And yeah, they're spending their hard money on it.
The people buying toys are adults.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not little kids who kind of maybe don't know or aren't looking. Like when we were kids, right? Like, it's a different demographic now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, I had my thoughts with that project. I wanted it, of course, I want every independent toy maker project to do well. I think it's amazing that we live in a time now where it's like we don't have to depend on just the big companies that give us what they think is cool. And people are doing it. I think this is cool. I'm gonna put my idea out there and see if other people think it's cool too. And a lot of people are on board with that, because there's a lot of stuff out there that's I love He-Man, I love Ninja Turtles, I love Joe, I love Transformers, but now I'm at the point where, okay, there's other stuff, right?
There's saturation of all those things.
I mean, how many different ways have I seen Ninja Turtles now? How many different companies have done it? And I love these guys, and I love what's being out there. I love He-Man, but how many different ways? I want to see some new, and that stuff's never going to go away. It's always going to live in my mind. It's always going to live in my childhood. It's part of our DNA. But what's going to happen for generations after us? What do they have to cling on to? The stuff that we grew up with? They need their own thing too. And maybe that's a chance for these people, new fans, that actually latch onto something that's going to come up by one of us, one of people who aren't with big industries and stuff like that, who are just doing toys for the love of the industry and the love of these new IPs and stuff. So
yeah, and like the big companies, and I think Hasbro's a great example of this, they're not too into taking risks. And that's why we see a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again. Like, and risk is real, right? Like, case in point, like I created I guess I dipped my toes in creating a toy line.
Yeah.
It didn't go that great, honestly, at the end of the day.
Yeah. It was your first one too, though.
It's my first one. I got it made. I did it. I learned a lot.
Right.
But, if I had done a Kickstarter, it would have probably failed, unless I had, just like I would have learned from that and then maybe tried again.
Yeah.
But like a Kickstarter, like that eliminates risk.
Right.
Yep. Like you're pre-selling something, and if it doesn't happen, you don't you've spent some money, but not production and shipping money.
Yeah.
And which is like, I did as teeny tiny a little toy thing as I could, and I still spent $40,000 plus.
Yeah. Well, think of it like this too, because folks talk about the successes of Hasbro and everything, but for every G.I. Joe that they did back in the day, there was an Inhumanoids, and I loved Inhumanoids. I thought that was amazing. I think there's I think there's a place for that right now that can be done very well. I could see Inhumanoids as a movie. I loved it that much, but that was a certified failure for Hasbro. And Joe succeeded, and Sky Commanders, and for Kenner.
Sky Commanders.
Yeah, that was a failure.
Yeah, there was a time in my childhood where if you walked in my bedroom, you were going to get clotheslined by something.
Yeah.
The sad thing is, talking about the humanoids, is I had heard something, a description of it, where it wasn't that it was a failure, it was that it did not exceed as heavily as any of the current toy lines at the time. I bet it made more money than most of the current toy lines today.
Oh yeah.
It's just compared to, because the play habits of kids and everyone having, huge collections of toys back, it was a failure because it didn't sell 3 million.
Exactly.
It only sold, 700,000 of each, which compared to a toy line today would just be phenomenal sales.
Exactly. And they were also comparing it at that point, everything had to do Joe numbers because that was the bar. And so if it didn't make that, and it had the exact same things that Joe had, it had the cartoon, it had the toys, it had the comic book.
Yes and no. Like that cartoon, that cartoon was, I want to say, on like every third Sunday with like Gem and so it wasn't as easy to watch as Joe.
Exactly.
Because it just wasn't, Joe, like came home from school and you got your ass in front of the TV because Joe was coming on in 5 minutes. And Humanoids was like hit or miss whether it would be on next Sunday or not.
And that kind of stuff. But it's still, we're talking about it, so it still resonates. It's still a viable line. And I remember I kept pushing that Hasbro, like, could we do something with Centurions? There is a vault of stuff that Hasbro still has that, hey, you know what? It might not be a failure. It might be a success. It might not. But now you have people you already have a built-in fan base. You have people that want to buy stuff. And if you can just do the Ghostbusters was a joy to work on and was a thrill. And I finally got to have figures that I always wanted as a kid.
Which thing are we talking about?
All the Ghostbusters stuff I worked on all of it at, so the 1984, the 3 3/4. I worked on the 6-inch stuff.
About like the new O-rings that just came out.
Yeah.
That we all just got. You worked on that.
Yes. Yeah. That was a dream to work with. But Ghostbusters is like, that was it to me. That was the window, and got a chance to do it. It was never done before. And great. Did it make the numbers that G.I. Joe Classified is currently making? Probably not. But there was still that fan base that wanted it, and they bought it. So to me, well, why not? You don't need Centurions to be, or not Centurions, you don't need Inhumanoids to be an evergreen brand or to make these gangbusters numbers. Right. But that's a license. You don't have to pay a royalty for anybody. That's your own IP. You can do whatever you want with it. And it's just sitting there. So do something with it. There's so many things Hasbro has that, like, God, I love Cops and Crooks. I loved all of that stuff. That's your stuff. You don't have to pay a license to Marvel. You don't have to pay a license to Lucasfilm. And if that stuff is kind of not selling, if Marvel and Star Wars isn't selling as well as it used to, you already have a library of this stuff that hasn't been tapped in today's market. Why not do that? Why not try it?
Yeah. I don't know if, the aging 80s demographic could carry a line without some type of media presence. I don't know. Like Classified, like those movies aren't selling these figures.
Oh God, no.
So, but Joe is also, like you said earlier, like Joe is always the bar. Like that base audience is so big. Yeah. It was such a great thing to finally have 6-inch Joe out there. People have been asking for this, and it's finally at the level that people wanted. This is what they wanted. Just give them this, not movie stuff, not Fortnite, amalgamation Joe. They want this kind of Joe, and clearly, they just give the fans what they want. That's always what I've been. That's always what I've been a fan of. Just give them what they want.
That sparks to me a question about Sigma 6 Joe. So to me, it was cool, but it wasn't necessarily something I wanted at that time. And then the way they look in comparison to like what we have now in a 6-inch figure, that wasn't it. And so how did we get to a point where we're going, okay, we really want a 6-inch Joe now? How do we get to that point? I mean, I guess it would spark from maybe seeing what Star Wars was doing with their line, their 6-inch line, and what Marvel with their 6-inch line. When did we sort of say, okay, it's time for Joe to have this now?
It was past time. It was beyond past time. It's a 6-inch Marvel license. You're paying a royalty. A 6-inch Star Wars license, you're paying a royalty. A 6-inch Joe license, you're not paying a royalty. It's your IP. To me, that was a no-brainer. Once you started seeing the boom, the resurgence of 6-inch, and once you started seeing it, after year 2 or 3 of Star Wars 6-inch, if you knew that that was selling, and then Marvel, 2-3 years, Marvel Legends, the resurgence now that Hasbro is doing it, not Toy Biz anymore, then absolutely. So to me, why did it take so long?
Right.
You saw that and I'll tell you why. There are folks that might not be as connected in the toy industry that think that only movies sell figures. So their thinking probably some marketing people thought that, hey, you know what? We're not going to do a 6-inch until there's a movie attached to it. It's the same thing with Indiana Jones. We didn't see any new Indiana Jones product until a new movie was announced and was coming out. And no Indiana Jones stuff had been on the shelves until the last one was Crystal Skull.
Right.
So someone thought, and to me, that's an old school way of thinking, that number one, we're all adults now. What if that movie sucks? And the last time a Joe movie came out, there hasn't really been a super successful Joe movie. And people, if it's great, awesome, then the toys might sell. But if it's not, then the toys won't sell. And then these figures, there's already comic books, there's already the cartoons, there's already the history with the toys. It was a no-brainer to me. Just make them 6-inch. And if it fails, then fine. You've got something like a Sigma 6. It didn't go that far. You tried it out. It still resonated with a lot of people. But dude, it's Joe. Of course it's going to sell. It's classic Joe in a 6-inch form. It's never been done before. And to me, right now, double down on that stuff. Make even more Joe stuff. Put your resources and stuff to that where there's even more releases, because my God, man, I'm in my 50s. I'm not going to live long enough to see all these characters made in 6-inch form.
Yeah, I've always thought that one of their hesitations would be the fact that G.I. Joe was always humans fighting humans. And you're always going to have the parents that are, I don't want my kids using, having a person shooting another person with a thing that looks like a gun.
It's tough.
I think that's why, Roadblock had the tuning fork, and everything is like, oh, well, that's not a human, that's a robot, or that's a ninja. Somehow ninjas aren't humans, but I think that's been a lot of the pushback, but hopefully they're seeing enough success from it to keep it going.
And at that time too, you also have to ask yourself, great, I understand that logic, but as a kid buying a $30 figure right now, they're making TikTok videos, they're on their phones, they're on their iPads, these figures, we're buying these figures.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I know the difference between, I get that, and I understand the discussion 1,000% over, and I get it. But at the end of the day, Joe's DNA, they were military, they're Army figures. At the end of the day, they always have been, and they always will be. And if you're not going to have them with their weapons, their actual weapons, then don't do the line. Just don't do it, because its core is they're military. Even 12-inch, they were military.
Right, and we are unbelievably programmed to what they are supposed to be. This was the thing that blew me away out of the game. Like, they did the Nerf guns, and I told you this I've said this 1,000 times. Like, if they had, I thought, no kidding, we're gonna get G.I. Joe themed Nerf guns.
Yes,
and I was like, I would have bought every single one of them.
Yep.
No big deal. But Duke came with a specific gun. Roadblock came with a specific gun. And it's so programmed in there.
Oh yeah,
it's so programmed in there, and right or wrong, it's just what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you can, you take an adult that grew up with G.I. Joe. All you have to do is show them a handful of guns, and they can look at them and say, "Oh, that's Stalkers. Oh, that was Dukes. That was Tunnel Rat. That was Beachheads." I mean, it was part of the personality of the figure.
Yes.
So when they did the tuning fork, and then what I still don't understand is, I mean, you've still got characters that have, guns that are associated with them that they just won't give. The Baroness. The Baroness, how many figures have they released with that, and they still haven't released her with her actual gun?
Well, the Rattler HasLab ones got something pretty close to it.
Does it? Okay, so
Yeah.
I had not. I didn't pay enough attention to that.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't physically have it yet, but like that, that's kind of what I look at. So
yeah. Now I do understand there is some level of, certain gun manufacturers, basically trademark their guns. Like my understanding is you cannot do a toy version of an H&K because they will come after you. They will say, no, that's our design. Yep. Glock, I think, is another one that will do that. So you got to be close, but not real.
There's a handful of companies, I think, but legally speaking, like if you're like, you have to change how the thing looks by a certain percent, right?
Yes.
And a little 1/12 scale toy gun, no reasonable person is going to confuse that for the real thing. You couldn't walk into a bank with, wrote like this. I can walk into a bank and rob it with this. Right. No one's,
Yeah.
Put the money in the
bank. Got to paint that tip orange.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of screwed around it, but then you can't on the packaging say, oh, it's an H&K such and such, because that is trade.
Oh yeah. And I miss I mean, I love the 6-inch, so I'm still 6-inch Joe and Star Wars. To me, the vehicles were just as much characters as the figures themselves. So I understand it's a 6-inch market, but I miss the fact that I can't have my vehicles now, or it has to be a giant Haslet. I'm never going to get a whale at 6-inch scale. It's not. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, not from Hasbro.
Not from Hasbro. There's
not from Hasbro. I've seen 1/12 scale whales, and they're pretty impressive looking.
And that's what I think is so. That's why I so love the. I can't even say how much I'm getting goosebumps talking about that. People now have the access. Oh well, if the companies aren't doing it, I'll do it myself. And we have the technology to make those toys. If I had my goal, I would make every Hanna-Barbera character ever right now because I grew up with that. And I want me. There's no good Scooby-Doo figures out there. I'm sorry if somebody's tuning in. Arlen did some good ones, but I still want some Scooby-Doo figures, and I want them 6-inch. I want them super articulated. And yes, somebody announced them, but I still don't.
Is that where the line is for you? Like the ones that we've gotten aren't articulated enough?
There's certain nuances about Scoob. There's certain nuances about Shag, and all of them. And I think I want them a little bit more classic. And I know that there's a level there. McFarlane got close when he was doing the kind of more so statues with like Hong Kong Phooey and Captain Caveman. So there's that aesthetic, but they weren't articulated. And then the articulated ones, I forgot which company did them. They gave Captain Caveman like this weird torso break. So he spun, but essentially he's shaped like an avocado. So why would I just spin an avocado around? Because it's still going to be an avocado no matter how I spin it. So what is just spinning here going to do for like a ball? If I just do that that gives me nothing. But that's a whole nother tangent. That's a whole nother thing. I'll discuss that one other day with my love for Hanna-Barbera, and I just want some Hanna-Barbera figures. So all that history. So
that does kind of lead into with you being such a talented designer or sculptor.
Oh, thank you.
When you're looking at other things that are releasing, how critical are you when you're like, man, okay, I see this finished product, but I don't know, man.
Yeah. It's tough because I was the weird kid. When I would go for toys and I'd go and pick them up, first thing I would do is grab the figure, flip the package over, and I wanted to see what company made it. And I looked at the address. I looked at where they were. I would actually write them letters because I was kind of being a little bit of a dick when I was a kid. I'm like, hey, can you make this a little bit better? Or could you make this? I would actually do turnaround drawings. And I said, could you do this? Kenner actually wrote me back every time. I remember asking him.
Wow.
Yeah. I asked them because I wanted Hondo McLean and Firecracker from Mask, and they didn't release him in the first wave. And I asked them, hey, he's my favorite. Can you have him? Are you guys going to make him? And they said, we're actually going to make him in the next wave. Just be patient. And they wrote me back, and I still have it somewhere.
Wow. That's awesome.
They were awesome. So to your, little bit of a tangent, but yes. So I'm super, as I've gotten older, and it's kind of, I feel bad about doing that, but like, hey, this is my industry. So I'm super critical when I go and see stuff. I hate when companies put in articulation and it doesn't work. I can, especially if I can look at it and tell it doesn't work, because that means you took time, paid someone to engineer it, you took time to tool it, you took time to mold that, and now it doesn't work. So you just wasted everybody's time and money doing that. So that should work. There's a particular hip joint. So I call it the V crotch. So they usually do it on females where the figures, their crotch just goes here, so their legs flare out. So they sit. That articulation should not exist ever, 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 because you can't sit. You can't put them in seats. You can't put them in a vehicle.
Yep. Once you sit them down, their legs are kind of still doing that. Yeah.
Exactly. I love the Playmate Star Trek figures when they were out in the 90s. And I got my bridge playset, and everybody's just showing everything on the bridge. Like, come on. So,
in that respect, if it was Kirk's bridge, that's kind of the way.
I'd rather you just give me just a flat plane where the legs just go straight forward, because it's a flat plane anyway. Than that. I hate that. And I will just, and especially early Toy Biz, when they were doing kind of like where there was the female figure, but she was kind of like posed to like one hip where her weight's going one way.
Yeah.
And then you give her a V crotch. So, like, okay, I don't even want to bend those legs because I don't even know what that's going to look like. And I know it's not going to be pretty.
A lot of the early McFarlane figures had that stuff too.
Yeah.
Not Cybernary, but Wild Max.
So,
there was a bunch of those early Image comic figures. They were like I want to say, I think Angela had something like that, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we had a contest. That's when I was an intern at Hasbro originally, and I got the Angela figure. We had a contest in the sculpting department if anybody could get her to stand, because luckily she had the base, but she wouldn't. Even on the base, she wouldn't stand, and you couldn't. Yeah. The legs were attached, but they wouldn't really move, so you couldn't do anything with her.
Yeah.
So yes. So I'm super critical with that kind of stuff. The thing that breaks my heart the most is when I see things and there's so much potential missed, and like, there's things you could do in there that's like, just because I love toys. I love this industry and stuff, and it's just like, you're paying for this anyway. You're paying for engineering. Engineer it right. Do the tooling right. So, yeah. So it makes it tough, but I love seeing what people are doing out there. And then I love seeing, here's a little thing that I'll add. It's like this little guy, little bluey guy. I'll even pick this stuff up. The reason I even picked this up is because of the articulation. It's something I hadn't seen before, where this guy will actually sit 90, even though his torso is deeper and longer than he should not be able to do this, but because they cut it like that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's just little things like that. Like, wow, to me, that was brilliant. I had to pick this up because I thought, hey, that'd be cool for like some of my ideas for like Hanna-Barbera characters, because they still also have that peg legs on the kind of a larger frame and stuff. Like, this would work perfect. So I love seeing that kind of stuff. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right, we are almost at 2 hours.
Yeah,
a little longer than our usual thing. So, let's wrap it up. If anyone that is watching, if you've got any questions for Carter in the chat, go ahead and get that stuff in there now.
Yeah, Ben had a good one. Are you going to be attending any cons this year?
Oh, I want to. I definitely want to, because I want to be able to hang out with some of the folks that like Mark, and I want to be able. I've never actually talked to Chris in person, Chris Scott with Grindhouse Toys. So I want to actually be able to hang out with these guys, and Bobby Vela, and just folks that I've met in this industry or worked with or known for years. And I've been to Comic-Con out here on the West Coast, but we don't have any of the cool Joe Fest or Atlanta Fest or any of those, or Jolanta and stuff. We don't have those out here on the West Coast for some reason. Everything's Midwest and East Coast. So I definitely want to make my way out to and like talk to folks and talk toys. So definitely I want to try.
So you're still West Coast. I mean, I'm looking all in your background now. I see the Seattle Shrine. Okay. So you're still kind of in the San Diego area.
Oh yeah. So yep, San Diego, North County. So right 45 minutes south of Orange County, 45 minutes north of San Diego. But if people ask, yeah, I say San Diego because nobody knows what North County is when I say North County. So.
Nope, understand. So you've been to Comic-Con. Is that something you frequent? Like, is that a yearly thing or?
Every year.
Every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been there every year for 14 years, 15. So yeah, seen it grow into what it's become. Saw it right after COVID, where it's rebuilding. So I believe it's back up to full strength now. And like now all of the Hollywood's coming back and bringing back all of their stuff again. So it's back to full strength in my mind. So yeah,
the last one I attended, I think, was 2019, and so I haven't seen it since the COVID era. Okay.
2019 was truly the last great one.
Yeah,
that was the last one. My fondest memories were of that one. So yeah,
I'll get out there eventually, man.
Please, man.
I'll tell you what, like the first show I ever went to, period, was Joe Fest in 2021.
Oh, okay.
Like, what a blast. And I've been kind of peppering a lot of these smaller shows. Like I'm going to Winterfest in like 2 or 3 weeks, and that's in Kentucky.
Oh.
Okay. I haven't been to that one before. It's gonna be my first time going. But like, if you can get to, there's one called Assembly Required in Iowa in November. That is the best hangout show.
Oh, okay.
Period. Joe Fest is a monster. It's a ton of people.
Okay.
It goes really fast. You're exhausted at the end of it from just talking to everyone and not sleeping.
Yeah.
It's very vendor heavy. A lot of great content as well. Joe Fest is huge, but yeah, there's Toylanta coming up in, I want to say, March. That's a great show. There's Joe Lanta, kind of run by the same dude. I want to say Toylanta this year is merging with what used to be PowerCon.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So and PowerCon's kind of, that started as a He-Man show and kind of evolved into being kind of like the small toy company show. And then either last year it didn't happen, ended up not happening, or this year it wasn't going to happen because there was a conflict with the schedule and the event center where they held it.
Okay.
So they're merging with Toylanta this year. So it's gonna be interesting to see what that turns into.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of great shows, and like, wow, what a good time. It's just like like-minded people that are there to enjoy the same stuff. So it's really just turns into this love fest of, old guys who like their action figures.
Yeah.
It's great. It's absolutely fantastic. All these little shows.
Yeah.
That's my tangent.
It's the thing, the new thing. Like, it used to be like comic book conventions. I know they still have a lot of those, but it doesn't seem as many. And there's still folks, there's still, which I applaud, there's still baseball cards and stuff. I think they do conventions and stuff too. But man, to me, the action figures, it's art, it's fun, it's a escapism, and especially I think we need stuff like that right now. Where, don't talk to me, man. I'm just hanging out with my toys. I'm just doing my toy thing. So just, yeah,
cool.
And yeah, just love being part of this and having folks tune in and watch and listen to me ramble forever on toys. I warned you. I told you this would happen.
This is great. You are coming back on here at some point.
The quickest 2 hours of my life.
This is a real fast one. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm gonna talk real quick about our upcoming schedule. We're gonna wrap it up. When we do, Carter, don't press any buttons. Just hang out.
Okay.
We're gonna talk for a minute.
Okay.
So real quick, we've got this is Carter. So on the 19th, so next Sunday, we've got the guys from the G.I.JOE 3D printing workshop.
Ooh.
And they're going to be on now. So these guys were at the DFW Joe show last summer, and Joe show had posted a YouTube video of their panel, And I started watching. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I started watching it, and within about 5 seconds, I realized they're saying all the same stuff that we say because we're doing the same thing. And they seem like good dudes. So I invited them on. They're going to come on, and we're going to kind of focus on talking about the difference between 3 3/4 inch, 4 inch, 6 inch, and then those are 12-inch guys. So that's kind of the focus. But who knows where that conversation is going to go? The weekend after that. Say again.
That's the Bizarro universe. It's us,
right?
But we're
like the possibilities are amazing. Because you can get away with so much more detail on those larger things. But then if you want to do vehicles, it becomes this whole other challenge. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Weekend after that, I've got Winterfest. I don't think we're doing a show. After that, we're gonna have Dylan from Anthanatos Unlimited and Jason from Jay's Armory. They're gonna be on, and we're gonna talk about selling 3D prints. It's an interesting little trap that it's real easy to fall into. Especially if you're designing your own things and you're the only person that's got it. People are gonna throw that meme of Fry from Futurama saying, take my money. They start throwing stuff at you, and it's really easy to get into selling stuff, but it's not necessarily quick, simple, and easy. So those guys are going to come on. They're going to talk about their experiences with their Etsy stores and whatnot, and they're crushing it. Let's see, the weekend after that, the 9th of February, we're going to have Corey Cantaloupe on here, another former Hasbro sculpting manager, great guy. We'll see how that conversation goes. It'll probably be a lot like this. I love talking to him. And the weekend after that, the 16th of February, Derek Hicks will be on, and we're going to be talking about his 12-foot USS flag that he built. It looks absolutely amazing. Have you seen that thing?
No,
Carter?
I've heard of this though.
Yeah, so he's got a great video up on YouTube. He's posted tons of pics in the Facebook group. But that's the thing that, like, as soon as everyone started realizing people are 3D printing classified stuff, everyone goes, who's going to make a flag? He's the guy that actually did it.
It's insane. My flag is sitting right here, and it takes up nearly half the house. So to have a 12-foot one is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to be on, and that's as far as we're scheduled. But it's pretty cool. Like we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants with this podcast for a long time, and it just scheduling and everything. It takes effort. So once a month was kind of what we were doing, and then we'd slip every once in a while and it'd be every other month or every third month. But I kind of like this every weekend thing that we've gotten into. It's a little more effort to plan.
I think Mark decided we don't talk enough, so all of a sudden,
that's part of it is I just miss you guys. It's like I don't have a lot of friends where I live right now, so I need my coast to coast buddies.
That's cool though.
Perfect.
So awesome. All right, guys. Carter, thanks again. This was awesome. You're definitely coming back, and so for all the folks watching, thank you, and we will catch you guys next time.
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joeski.
Yo, Joe.